Hey everyone, this is Rick. In my last video I talked about the dangers of wanting to wet clean a book that has a lot of tanning, because a lot of times that tanning is very water soluble and can come off. If you want to wet clean it, it can get around and make a big mess and leave stains and things. It can be, it can really be a disaster if there's a lot of it. And how would you avoid that? So this week I was going to clean that other book the same, but I thought I would start with a fresh one with more tanning. This one's Avengers 16. This one 1965. It's a Lee and Kirby book. Yeah, Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, Dick Ayers, and Artie Simek. And I wanted to show one way to approach this. And nothing happens in this book that's really in particular cool. I remember that Hawkeye ties up Jarvis at Avengers Mansion and basically tries to coerce the Avengers into admitting him and the Black Widow into the Avengers. Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch write a letter, like they stamp, and like two chairmen of the board at Avengers Mansion and say they want to join. So sort of changing up the team a little bit. I think they add Giant Man back. It's just classic, Kirby goodness, Lee Kirby goodness. It's fun, but it's nothing really much happens in the book. I don't think it's a key in any way. It's pretty fun. So this book is really challenging because it's so brittle that it was cracking. It was on the edges as I was opening it. Like, it's so very brittle that I thought that just the act of reading it could break it. And it's so I didn't have high hopes that this would be a successful mission, because it's one of the worst possible cases, because I want to remove the cover. The steps in this case are to remove the cover, take it off, and then I do 2 steps of washing. Now, many of you probably already know this, but DI water by itself is a really harsh, it's harsh solvent. It can remove a lot of the sizing agents, other things that keep the paper supple that you want. So sometimes I just put a little bit of salt in it, sometimes some potassium bicarbonate, just something a little bit, just to take the edge off of the solubility of it. But in this case, I used Immacuclean just to remove like the bulk tanning, and then I did a neutralization, or some people call it a deacidification, with dilute calcium hydroxide, and not very much. It was pretty dilute, about 1 gram per liter, maybe a little less. And washed the book, gave it about a half-hour soak in each, and then I gave it an 8-hour drying in my Immacuclean. The reason I did that is because I don't want the book to shrink, which it often will. And if you wash it, it can be smaller by about a 1/16 of an inch, by about 2 millimeters. Somehow, it can be shorter, and it sticks out. It looks like the book is trimmed. And then I just do the reassembly. So those are the steps in this video. You can follow along, and I'll narrate it. I hope you enjoy it. Here's the book, what it looks like when we start. You can see it's pretty tanned. The front page has got a lot of stuff. I'm so afraid to get this wet because I think that tanning will come off and get everywhere. So we're going to get it wet in a sort of a controlled fashion. And to do that, we have to remove the cover first, which is super risky in this particular cover. It's so brittle that I wouldn't really recommend it normally. We take the capable staple tool. I find the little groove here. I press it down on 1/2 the staple. I'm going to just push that up. Now, sometimes you can't get under it very easy. To get around that, you force it off to one side, which I'll show you doing here. And then you can get underneath it. Get it sort of out of plane. And then you can just bring it up. There we go. And then we take this hole here, and we take that hole and turn it 90 degrees to hold the back of the staple down so we don't get any upward pressure from the outside of the book. And this one's a little bit of a struggle again. I'm going to come at it from the left side. It's a pretty tight staple. I'm going to pull that up. And that one's good for removal. We do the same thing on the bottom staple. This is a thinner than normal staple tool. It's been sanded flatter, and it's been sandblasted and coated with Teflon-like substance. It's called Xylan, so that you don't scratch the staples or put any kind of marks on them. And it slides in a lot easier. And it's stiffer than plastic tools because it's metal. Then we just force these out. The back of the cover, and I can use the tool if I have to, or I can pinch it. Sometimes it's nice to get the tool in there, pull that out, and I put it on a little magnet on a piece of tape that says bottom there. And in the right orientation. And do the same thing on the top. And then when I'm done, I'll paper clip all the pages together so that they don't slide around and keep the holes aligned. And now the cover should be free. And it is. And this is what it looks like, folks. You can see it here. That's it. So Nolan Morgan is going to narrate this section for us.
Alright, so you see you fill up the pipette with a small amount of Immacuclean. You don't need that much. And then you put 2 drops of Immacuclean in the small beaker and 4 in the large beaker, as you can see. Needs more because it's bigger, obviously.
And in this case, we put a MacuDryer underneath and above it, usually when we're washing the cover. But in this case, we only put one on the bottom only because we're videotaping it. We want you to see what's happening. So it goes in MacuDryer, Remake paper, and usually we'd have Remake and MacuDryer, and we'll do the next section too. You'll see it. But Nolan's going to go ahead and describe what's happening next here.
Yeah, you can see it's just adding the solution in. Pretty simple.
And notice we're not pouring it directly onto the book. We're pouring it around the outside.
Yeah. Obviously, if you add water, it's going to make the paper fragile. So, you don't want to actively put the force of dropping the water or pouring the water onto the book.
Right, yeah, it can actually cause problems if you do that. The Remake paper and the MacuDryer help it, but you still don't want to do it. And here we go. Here's it's a little lighter. I feel a little more comfortable. Here you don't want to drop the beaker on the book. It'd really be
bad.
You'd probably say a bad word out loud. And I'm just going to sort of forcibly immerse this now.
Yeah, like it owes you money.
Yeah. And then we start our timer. I'm going to let it soak for 30 minutes. And then we'll take a look at the solution we'll watch. So not as much came out of this as I thought would. A lot of times this solution can be really just deep, dark brown if there's some of the water-soluble tanning. And this one's, you can see how much darker it is at the edges than the center. A lot of that sun shadowing effect.
It's interesting to see all the dirt come off when you actually can notice it.
Yeah, it's kind of hard on camera here. And
Definitely.
We're going to put the Remake paper on top, which, again, we'd normally start with it like that, but I wanted to show it's sort of obscured. It's hard to believe there's even something in there when you don't have it. So I'll put these in here. Now it's going to sink for sure. And we give it its time and we come back later.
Yeah, you really don't need that much water, actually.
No, we use 3 liters because this is a 50-liter container and it gives us just enough. And we come back for 30 minutes, and it doesn't look that yellow here because the path length it's hard to see through there very easily, but you can see when you get it into a beaker that there it is.
That's pretty bad.
It came off of it, yeah.
It's like oil.
Yeah. All right, Nolan, what are we doing next?
This is calcium hydroxide, as you can see. And then we are going to be taking, or I'm going to be taking, 3 grams of it out of that bottle into this weighing boat. And I try to go for 3 grams, but I overshoot on accident. But it's fine, and it doesn't matter that much. Then we're filling up this beaker with 3.5 liters of DI water.
Yep. Now here we go.
Yep. And then we're just adding that, calcium? Yeah, calcium hydroxide in there. Yeah, rinsing it just so we get all of it in. Precise process. Yep, you can see it's mixing it.
It says a little bit more than 3.5 on the side here, but it was 3.5 when we measured it.
Yeah, and then you can just see we're just pouring it in. Again, attempting not to drop it, and that would not be good. I don't think I need to explain any science to say why that would be good.
Yeah, so not all of it dissolved. It was kind of saturated. There was a little bit left over, but the pH is pretty high on this stuff. And then we just take it out.
Yep, make sure all the water drips out. I can't exactly see it. I try and, there it goes.
And just let it drip for a while.
Yeah, you don't want any.
You're just protecting the book the whole time.
Yeah, definitely. Number one thing to do, not let it tear.
Yeah, you don't want to touch the paper at all. Again, it's like 2 MacuDryers and 2 pieces of Remake paper. go. And then what are we doing here, Nolan?
I don't know. What are we doing?
We're going to transfer it to the paper towels to kind of squeeze any water out, and then we're going to let it dry.
I thought it was more complicated than that.
No, it's just we're keeping it. It's between two pieces of the remake. You can use Polytex or any kind of polyester spun, not woven fiber, and then we just set it on there. We're just kind of squeezing out any excess water, and then we're going to use the Immacuclean so the page doesn't. It dries it more evenly from the inside out, not just the edges in, but the inside out too. And it also doesn't shrink, or hopefully doesn't grow. You put some paper towels, again, outside of it. We put this on top.
Yep. Get some of the dirt, too, the towel, surprisingly.
It really does.
It's a dirty book.
It picks up a lot of material. Right? And then we just do this we do a single pass there. It turns it pretty yellow.
Yeah, like it's a lot of dirt in that book.
And then we put 2 more pieces of paper towel, or actually 4. You can put a weight on here, which is just a big, like a 2.5-inch stud.
I don't really think it matters what weight you use.
I put a little tool there to keep it from rolling off, and we just let it sit for, about 10 minutes. Just to pick up the water that can be easily transferred. And a lot of dirt and material comes out.
Yeah, I think it shows up a little bit on camera. You can kind of see it.
It's hard to tell. In real life, it was much more obvious. Then we put the little legs through our Immacuclean stand here. And we're just gonna thread those on there. And here we go. Transferring the book in the remade paper over here. We'll put the other half of the Immacuclean on. You can see it there, it's pretty dirty. A lot of material came out of there. And we put the legs on it. Here. Alright, so the purpose of this is just to elevate it so it's drying from underneath and above, so it's not just from above. It helps keep the paper from becoming either convex or concave. And dries more evenly. And you got to key this thing so the circles are on the circles, the squares are on the squares on the outside of it. And just let it dry. In this case, we'll let it dry for 8 hours. And it's underneath. There's an air gap. So it can be nicely done. And then it should be dry, and then we'll remove it and then take a look at it. Here we are.
Yep.
Looking at it. So the calcium hydroxide has sort of a slight bleaching effect too, so it kind of whitens the paper as well. I mean, it doesn't look, it's far from white, but it's
an old comic.
Yeah, it's whiter than it was, of course. So take a look here. What do you think, Nolan? Is it going to look a lot better?
You can kind of see it already.
Yeah.
I would say that looks pretty good.
No, one problem is that a corner broke off of it while it was in here. I noticed it was kind of loose, and I had to repair it. I put the corner back on later with some Japanese paper. But see that corner in the upper left? It broke off.
I would say that looks way better in the book.
There it goes. See the corner? Yeah, it does look better for sure, I think. I mean, there's that dark corner in the lower left still. And it's not white by any stretch of the imagination, but it's whiter.
Like I could be biased, but you can see with your own eyes. That looks better.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's supple too. It's not as easy to break, even though I did break that corner off. So it belies my own story. But now we have the hard part. Now we have to put the book back together, right? And then we could Immacuclean it at this point, and I do Immacuclean a little bit. I'll show you some pictures of that later. I'll show you some of the dirt I picked up. So I'll Immacuclean the outside of it, and then I reassemble it. And at the end, we'll show some before and after pictures and sort of narrate those for you. But I'll fix that corner too. I'll put it back on. And ready to put it back together, Nolan?
Absolutely.
This is a longer segment. This is just a reassembly. So what we're going to do is we're sizing this staple tool here. With the staple tool, we're sizing it. This is the two ends, the two on this end with the notched end, or the silver age size is 0.50 inches. Should fit all of the holes in the silver age. And I just want to force the staple to make sure it'll go back through the holes evenly. There we go. And you watched me do this lots of times, haven't you, Nolan?
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe you want to describe. I'll let you describe the next part here if you want to, or I can do it.
You probably do. I can just comment too.
Okay. Well, what I do is I force. There's a few ways to do this. I can snake it around from the inside. It's so brittle. I don't want to do that. It has been brittle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to poke the staple from the inside out, and that will help me get, because I can see the holes here, and I can fill them. I can play with the paper until they line up, and I can get them to poke through, the staple to poke through. And when it does, that helps me get the cover lined up from the other side. So what I can do is I can line the holes up with these little holes here. It just helps to kind of get it all exactly perfectly lined up. And then I can open it and hold it in place or put a paper clip to hold it down. So now I know exactly where the tines, the little ends of the staple tool need to go. And now I know that the holes on the inside will be lined up with the cover. And this is obviously the wrong direction, but I know that they're in the right spot. Now we turn the book over, and it should be lined up perfectly. So now we can, for holding it still, we can line the staple up with those holes, and we could it should go bloop right in, and there we go, lined right up, and we are ready for action. Hold our finger there, we flip it back over, and then we can use the tool this way, 90 degrees with one of the tines through the hole at the top. Just the reverse of what we did before. We force this section down.
This is a capable staple tool.
Yep, it is very capable. Is it not capable?
It is capable.
I love that. And the bottom, it should be a little easier now that the top's in. The bottom should be automatically lined up if you did that, so we don't have to put too much effort into it. But we do have to resize it, of course, as you've seen me do lots of times, right?
It's a very handy thing.
I know, I like it.
It's very tiny, too. Well, I guess the staple's also tiny, so
yeah,
it just makes sense.
It is handy. So I would say it's indispensable, but I'm biased, of course. There we go. And these should line up just right if the top's lined up right. And then if the sizing works correctly, this should just essentially plop right in there, and it should almost be easy at this point. So we just line it up, and you can feel it. You can kind of wiggle back and forth until you get the holes to line up. You can feel them, and then it just drops. And once you know you've got it, you can, here I am sensing it, right? I'm trying to sense where the holes are.
You want to be careful because, you can't just push it through the paper.
Yeah, that's careful is the name of the game here.
Yeah, the first time you put the staples in, you can just do it however you want. But when you're printing and stuff. But the second time you remove them, put them back in, you got to be careful, especially if it's 80 years later.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sensing this here, and there we go. I found it, and I have to find this one using my staple sense powers. This one's a little harder than I wanted it to be. And I got it. There we go. And it pokes right through. Get it, flip it over.
You can probably guess what's going to happen next. You have to...
Yeah, it's pretty much the same thing as we did before. I almost don't even want to show this part because it's
a little repetitive.
Yeah, it makes the video long, of course.
You don't want to waste any of your precious time.
Well, I did it anyway. I might as well show it, I guess. And then, yeah, we just put it back together.
What are we going to do next?
We're just going to show... Yeah.
What?
What? How could it be the same thing over?
Plot twist.
There we go. And there's the back of it. And then we'll show the before and after pictures. All right. There it is. There's our book. Let's stick it out. I should mention that I cleaned the outer cover with Immacuclean before I reassembled the book. And you can see from these 4 pads how much dirt I still removed after washing it. So wiping it with Immacuclean after the washing still removed a lot of dirt. And that's some of the brightness that you're seeing here is from that additional cleaning that I did. All right. Here's the cover. Comments, Nolan?
Looks better.
Yeah, it's brighter.
Yeah, it's definitely brighter, especially the blues in the back.
There's a little bit of his pajamas, his shorts look a little bit purpley more. I mean, I don't see any damage, but overall I think it's better.
I think it's a little bit there in the original book. Maybe it's just like that.
Yeah, maybe. Let's look at the inset next. So let's check out the inset first page. And that's a big difference.
Look, I guess we're biased, but come on.
And look at these staples are the paper's torn at the top. I'll have to fix that because it's just part of the process.
It looks so much better.
Right. What do you think, Nolan?
Considerably
It's
better.
stunning, really. It has like a bleaching effect, too, and that's what we're kind of seeing here, I think, is that sort of bleaching effect. I was afraid to handle this book. It's so brittle, we had to be done. What about this one? This one's not as big of a difference.
But it wasn't that bad at first. That's probably the main difference.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, it doesn't. I think it wasn't as bad as first, and it wasn't as good at the end.
Yeah, I agree. All right, Nolan, here's this inset. There's the corner missing, of course, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But what do you think about before and after here?
I think just generally, it just looks better. Mainly, you can tell around the edges. You look around the edges, and it's darker. And then, on the clean version, it's just all white.
Yeah, there's some red poking through too from that, but that was there previously. So